these gifts that I have, the gifts of communication, be it writing or speaking, allows me to express those gifts, and those gifts are contributing to the collective. You had to get rid of all the things, whether the fears, the insecurities, the frustration, whatever it was, that would allow then for these aspects of yourself to breathe, to come through. This is the Roxanne Show. Get ready. It's time to rise. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode. Today, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about that I talk about quite often, but I'm going to hit this from a different angle, and that is your authentic self. Now, if you've been listening to me for some time, you know that this is a core theme in my work. Why? Because it's truly the most important, I think, aspect of the human experience. You know, we really need to learn who we are, understand who we are, so that we can know, we can love, trust, and live from our highest expression, so that we can live with self-mastery and become a self-actualized individual. But none of that can happen if we don't actually operate as our most authentic self. And today's episode, I'm going to hit this from a different angle. What I want to talk about today is this idea of your authentic self being this result of constantly shedding and releasing and expanding. And in fact, it's almost fair to say that it's almost more of the shedding than it is the growing aspect. So I'm going to read a quote from Joseph Campbell. The quote is, "The old skin has to be shed before the new one can come." The old skin has to be shed before the new one can come. I really love that quote for this angle of your authentic self, because it really is a situation where we have to discover the parts of ourself that we carry that are not ours to carry. We get programmed from the time that we're born to the age of 7, right? Our brain waves are dominantly in theta, which is the state of hypnosis. So everything that we are encountering and engaging with, so your parents, your, environment, your friends, anything, it's like, it's going into our subconscious, right? And this is one phase, at least, of when we start to absorb that which is not necessarily truly ours to hold and to carry. We come here, I really believe, as a soul, right? A soul entering the flesh experience, the human experience. And our soul has an essence. Our soul has its own frequency. And a lot of times there's this sort of masking that happens around our soul's essence and frequency because of how we're brought up and the things that we are exposed to, and the list goes on, right? So it really becomes a duty to learn what are we carrying? What beliefs are we carrying? What stories are we carrying? What, even values that aren't necessarily our values, what are we carrying that doesn't truly belong to us? What are you saying yes to when you really want to say no? What are you saying no to when you really want to say yes? Right? This is how we start to uncover the truth of who we are, right? And it's so important to think about your authentic self as an evolution. It's not fixed. You're not fixed. I am not fixed, right? We are not fixed. We did not come here to be fixed. We actually run into big problems when we start to become fixed, right? When you start to settle in to a self-identity, a way of being that isn't allowing for evolution to unfold, right? This is where depression comes in. This is where that stagnation comes in. I mean, if you look around at the natural world, it tells us what we're here to do, because there is no separation. We are nature too, right? It's all it's all connected. And when you look to the natural world, it's just constantly evolving, right? There's cycles and it's evolving. So when we get ourselves into positions where we are not allowing for that evolution to unfold, we're going to feel like shit, and we should. It's a healthy signal from our soul that's saying, hey, we gotta do something about this, because this isn't truly you. This isn't all that there is. There is more to do here, but we're stuck. We're in some kind of cul-de-sac or something that's not allowing us to keep moving forward. So I really want to talk about the release aspect, because it's vital, first and foremost. And it's not easy to pick up on, especially in the initial. I think the more that you get into this self-work, the more that it can become easier, because your self-awareness is heightened and you start to experience yourself in a different way. You develop stronger self-intimacy. This is how I frame it. It's the home that you build within that allows you to do the deep work that can make you feel uncomfortable, that you might not want to do. But when you've built this self-intimacy, it's a safe place where you can actually do it. You can ask the questions, you can play with ideas, you can investigate certain reactions, experiences, all of the above, and you do it with no judgment. You do it from a place of curiosity, because you really, really do. You want to grow, you want to learn, you want to really uncover the truth, the truth in you. And we can only do that when we feel safe inside to go in like that, So releasing is not an easy task, but it is the assignment. It really is. Trying to think about an experience in my own life that could be really beneficial. There's been so many moments where I capture a limiting belief that has been really sneaky in terms of how it's existed. Because again, a lot of times these beliefs or, things that are sort of getting in the way of us being fully expressed in life, they hide in the shadows of yourself. They hide in your unconscious self, your subconscious self. And this is a problem because it's really impacting how you're moving in your life. So if you don't create the practices that allow you to uncover these sneaky limiting beliefs or a paradigm or a narrative or, all of it, then you're really walking around creating a life that is actually not designed for you. It's not what your soul came here to do. So it's deep work, but it's still the work. So I may have already shared this story once on a podcast episode, but it's perfect for this. So when we think about shedding, we want to think about, we all have a self-identity, right? Or self-concept. It's kind of interchangeable to me. And what creates your identity in this concept is many things. And one of those many things, and a big piece of the many things, is a belief that you believe about yourself, right? Like what you believe to be true about yourself. And I remember, this story. Okay. So I was about 2 years into the podcast. When recording this now, we're moving into 8 years, right? So it was quite some time ago already. And I was still active, super active in my past career, celebrity makeup artist. And me and one of my best friends got invited to this sort of influencer event. And we went together. And when we arrived, there was this press line, and it was really cute the way they set it up. And my best friend who I was there with, she's high profile, used to just being in the public eye, big like media all the time, right? So she's walking a few feet in front of me. And right when we get to the entrance, people start coming and they're putting a microphone up, right? It's like that point, like your red carpet moment, right? But it was a blue carpet. And I remember, so she just gets right into it, right? They're putting a microphone, she starts talking. And then one of the outlets comes up to me and puts a microphone up to me and wants to know who I am, like, and I just go, oh no. And I point to her, to my friend, like, oh, not me. Like, I'm not someone to talk to. And the reason why I did that was because this was my MO at this point. Like, so as a celebrity makeup artist, first of all, I'm in the behind the scenes, right? I'm not the one on the carpet. I'm not the sort of main character. I'm there. I'm making sure you're good, all the things. And you are the person. You're the one that they want to talk to. You're the one that's, getting the pictures taken. You're that person, right? And because that career was so long, and it's one of the traits that you have to actually go far in the career. You can't be trying to be the front person, the main character. You're not, because you're the help, right? And so I absorbed that very deeply into my self-identity. I didn't realize it until that moment. And it was such a mic drop moment for me, because right as I turned her way to my friend, in that exact moment, I got the download, like, wait a second, Roxanne, you have a podcast. You're a podcaster. You have things to say. You have things you talk about. And I was like, holy shit. It was a very pivotal moment I will never forget for the rest of my life. And in that moment, I dropped that part of my identity that I had been carrying that said, you're not the front person. You're not the main character, and that's okay. Like, I don't have an ego where I'm like, oh, I need to be, you know what I mean? At all, actually. But I realized that I actually had a duty at that point. I have a message, a lot of messages, right? Here I am 8 years later on the show, or maybe even further down the line if you're watching this years later. And so it became a moment of responsibility to my most authentic self to say, hey, like, express yourself here. Let them know who you are. What's your show? What do you talk about? What's your message? What's your work? And that's just one small example. There are so many examples, so many when we think about shedding and releasing. But that was a huge one for me. Huge one. And a pivotal one, again, because from that moment on, I really was able to stand in more of who I truly am authentically. I didn't come here to be help in that sense, like, meaning I am here to help. Obviously, that's what the show is, support, right? But it was more of a statement of, I'm not just. There's actually a significance to who I am and what I have to say. And it was this moment where I was being invited to deeply stand in it. In fact, to go further into it. So this is where it's cool when you think about growth. What I had to get rid of was this idea that I'm not a main character, that I'm not the person to talk to. And in doing that, I allowed the truth in me, which is I'm a fucking oracle and I've got a lot of things to say. And you know what? A lot of times it's helpful to a lot of you out there. And so it allowed for that truth to come through very powerfully for me. And there was a ripple effect from that, that would continue on. So take a moment right now and just think about that for yourself. Like, where might you be holding on to a certain narrative or belief about yourself? And again, like, it didn't happen for a negative reason. It wasn't a traumatic experience that created that narrative for me, because obviously we can definitely carry narratives and beliefs that stem from traumas and hardships in life. But I wanted to give you something, first of all, that was very true and very pivotal for me, but also to say that it's not always coming from that angle. So this is where that discernment, this is where that self-awareness is so fucking important, because it's easier to sort of look in those hallways, where you got hurt, or, where there was hardship or something, and sort of investigate those hallways to say, like, what where might I be holding on to something, a belief about myself, an insecurity, a narrative, or believing the inner critic, or any and all of that, based on the trauma or the hardship. Like, it's almost an easier discovery. I'm not saying it's easy. You still have to do the work. And a lot of times you don't even want to fucking open that door and look down that corridor. So I'm not saying it's easy, but the association of finding something in those hallways is easier than in the example that I just gave you, right? The example that I gave you was, no, the very thing that allowed me, or one aspect of it that allowed me to kick ass and climb to the top 1% of my career, was now the thing that could hold me fucking back from being who I truly came here to be. Do you understand how fucking powerful that is, and that difference? And if I didn't catch that, how I would be playing small. Because that's what happens. In any moment where you are not allowing for the fullness of your expression to come through, you are contained, you are playing small. Sometimes the playing small is, and a lot of times, it's not conscious. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you're backing down when you need to rise the fuck up. But sometimes it's so pure and innocent. You don't realize it. You don't realize it because, again, like just using my example, I was doing the thing that was so natural to me at that point because that's what I did. That was my career life, and my career life was the biggest part of my life, right? And so it's just what you did. But if I would have continued to allow that to be integrated into my belief system, my self-identity, then I would never even be here, honestly, at this point. I wouldn't be on stage talking. I wouldn't be getting ready to do a TED Talk. I wouldn't be doing this stuff. And that would mean that my true self, my authentic self, who came here to fully be expressed, would be suppressed. My authentic self would be suppressed. The reason why it's so important to share this angle of it is because it's not a simple subject to be your authentic self. It's not just, oh, just be real. As if it would be that simple. It's not. And it's not a destination. It's an ever-evolving evolution. And you have a job to see that you are devoted to the evolution of your authentic self to actually be expressed in this life, right? This is huge because there will be many moments that come into your life, many experiences that come into your life that will try and mask, try and suppress, or put you in a position where you feel like you need to, where you're scared, where you don't trust, right? And those are really important moments to pay attention to look out for, because the goal is to fully live expressed. You know, if you can look back at your life before it's over and say, I really fucking lived my heart out. I lived who I truly came here to be. That to me is the highest point of success. Holy shit. And in that, you know, when you allow yourself to truly be who you are going to be contributing to the collective. This is an important point. It's kind of a little bit of a sidestep from the overall concept here, but it's always important for me to bring this up when we talk about the authentic self, because it's really, it could be almost viewed when we talk about you have a duty to be true to yourself. Sometimes that can almost bring in this idea of, oh, you're true to yourself, so then nobody else matters. That is not a truth. That is not a truth. I'm going to use myself as an example. Me being who I truly fucking am, me being devoted to who I truly am, allows me to show up in my highest self and form, which gratefully, these gifts that I have, the gifts of communication, be it writing or speaking, allows me to express those gifts, and those gifts are contributing to the collective. They're hopefully helping you right now in this moment. And that is actually what happens when you're truly being yourself. It is not this self-centric, I'm just in it for me and no one else matters. I'm going to do me and nobody else matters. No, it's not that. But I'll tell you what, you're absolutely a disservice when you're not being true to yourself. First and foremost, to yourself. You're not honoring yourself. And that right there is going to just totally impact your spirit. And when you're not functioning from a high-spirited place, you got to think, how is that contributing to the collective? How is that helping not just society? How about people in your personal life? If you're not a vibrant spirit, probably, there's friction, there's conflict, there's, some shit that's not going to feel good in your life and your relationships and, all of that. So it's just another angle that I think is important to mention, but to bring this back to the main premise of the episode, which is we need to be brave. We need to be aware. We need to be so ruthlessly honest with ourselves and always paying attention to where might we be carrying an identity, a belief, a narrative, all of it, any of that isn't true to who we are, truly who we are, that isn't really for us to carry. I was having a conversation with a very dear friend of mine last night, and he was like, I've grown so much, talking about just his journey. And I was like, and isn't it, because I was pointing out some qualities about him. And they're so, to me, they feel so inherent to him, like they are truly who he is. And he was like, I've grown a lot. And sometimes that can look like, oh, well, these weren't here before. I had to grow these qualities. And I said, and I shared it and he agreed. I said, what you did is you got rid of the shit that was in the way of who you truly are. These qualities are your truth. They're your truth. I can feel it. You had to get rid of all the things, whether the fears, the insecurities, the frustration, whatever it was, that would allow then for these aspects of yourself to breathe, to come through. So do you see how it's interesting when we think about growth? Growth is not just, I plant a seed and it grows into this flower. Like it starts from there. Growth is, I got to get rid of what's not allowing what is there already to come through. And this is the shedding. This is the releasing. And when we can do that, then we can allow for our true essence, our true attributes, our true qualities to come in, to come through, to breathe. And of course, then there is the sort of different angle where you are, like if it's, you have to rewrite a narrative, right? Maybe you don't feel you're worthy and you have to rewrite that narrative to, I am so worthy. I am inherently worthy. Well, that is a different angle when we're thinking about growth in your authentic self, right? When we think about if someone is, a people pleaser and how do they, rewrite whatever stories, heal whatever traumas that were putting them in that position where they were a people pleaser. I mean, there is growth that is coming now. That's a different angle. But all of this is just, it's basically like, man, you're here to be true to your soul, to your heart. I say this all the time: soul self, higher self, spirit self. One thing from my perspective speaks through you, through your heart, truth. Your heart doesn't small talk. Your heart doesn't should. Your heart just is. Yes, no, right? And that's coming through from the above, from this higher perspective of you. And your job is to listen, to trust, and to take action from that download, from that hint, that message, that frequency, even when it won't feel good. Even when, because that is how you're going to remain true to who you truly are. And that is how you're going to tap into your real gifts. And that is how you're going to live a life where you are fully expressed. But you have to be consistent there. So you have to be willing to, this is why trust is it's so fucking huge. Self-trust. It's your authentic self and self-trust are huge. You have to put yourself in positions from this truth in you that creates that trust. If you're never being true to you, or even a little bit, like here, there, whatever, you're not, if you're holding back from being true to you, you're never going to fully trust yourself. How could you? You can't. It's actually simple math. Like, it sounds super high level and deep, but it's actually simple math. How in the fuck are you going to trust yourself when you're not truly being yourself? You're already saying in that moment, I don't trust me. So I can't say yes when I really want to. So you're already right there, boom, by default. You didn't put yourself in a position where you're going to trust yourself. Your authentic self helps you build trust in who you are. And if you are living a life where you don't trust yourself, you are absolutely playing small. You're avoiding loss instead of playing to win. You are never tasting your potential. So I talk about this all the time, but it has to live in this episode too, because it's an essential piece to the authentic self. And that is what this episode is about. So take a moment and feel where right now in your life are you holding something that's not yours to carry, belief, narrative. Where are you playing small, holding back? Where are you saying yes when you want to say no, and the reverse? And think about that and just wonder about it. Like, hey, right. I'm the queen of writing, queen of the pen for a reason, because that shit, first of all, has been active my whole life. Second of all, when I coach and mentor women, this is what we do. We turn to your pages, and what comes through is unfucking believable. It's actually believable to me, but it's so incredible. Like the breakthroughs that happen. You have to take to your pages with curiosity. You have to ask these questions that I'm posing to you, not from a place of judgment, shame, criticism, guilt. You have to, and I know it's not going to be easy in every situation, but because there might be some parts where you don't want to face, but you still have to do that. You still need to, because otherwise you're just walking around and you're not free. Your authentic self sets you free. To truly be authentic means that you're free. Your authentic self doesn't care about fucking being understood. It's nice when we can be understood. It feels good. It totally does. I know. I went through a lot of periods in my life where I felt like I wasn't understood. And it was like, all I want to do is be understood. But not at the cost of not being who I truly fucking am. Never did that. Not going to do that ever. And so now I look back and I'm like, God, in those moments where you were striving to be understood, it wasn't about that. All that mattered is that you understood yourself. All that mattered is that you understood yourself. So when I ask you to go to your pages and ask yourself these questions, that is the goal. It's so that you can truly understand yourself. And then in that understanding, you can source like, hey, this isn't actually what I want, or this isn't actually what I believe, or this isn't actually what I want to carry, or maybe this isn't actually who I am anymore. Maybe this really worked for the time, but like not anymore. So now then becomes the work of the shedding. And that looks like a lot of different things. The process of shedding, the process of releasing, the process of unbecoming, the poetic way to say it. Call it whatever the fuck you want. It's just, let's get it. We gotta get it out of the way, because the truth in us wants to come through. The truth in us wants to be expressed. The truth in us wants to be fucking free. And when you feel that freedom, nothing will feel better than that. Nothing. You will fight for your freedom. You will. Because we came here to be free. We came here to be fully expressed. And this is how you do it. So I'd love to know what you think about any parts of this that I've shared. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow, and that helps more people get all of what I'm sharing out here. If you are listening to this, Spotify, actually, you can actually leave questions now, so we can connect there, which is awesome. But yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comment section. I love carrying on the conversation with you. And if you have not already given this podcast a 5-star rating review, I'm sneaking that in because that shit matters to me and my team. So yeah, I hope this really hit. I hope this hit in a very serving place for you. I want you to be free. I want you to be you. I want you to be fully fucking expressed. And, you know, the world, we deserve the true you. We deserve to experience the fullness of who you are. And you, most importantly, deserve that. So I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much for listening, you guys. Please like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review.